Hey, it's Friday. We are live. So, what I wanted to talk about today was the more Google accounts I'm seeing, I'm starting to see a little bit of a stream, which is just a lot of complexity in Google ad accounts. So, I'm seeing multiple campaigns that are running on budgets that really aren't efficient for Google to the AI to really optimize it, and for you as an advertiser to get enough data points to make those optimizations that you need at the point that you can actually definitively make a difference to your Google ads. Let me give you an example. Recently, went into an account, did an audit, and they had it was something like it was 8 or 9 different campaigns that were running. They were running overall on a budget of about 150 a day, but it was spread way too thinly. And it made no sense for such small budgets, especially for an e-commerce targeting such a it was a country, it was the United States. So I had a look at the campaign, and it was very difficult to me to make a decision for them based on the data points. So I'm looking at clicks, I'm looking at impressions. Um, we weren't even showing up on the search impression share because there was just not enough data points. So it was very difficult to say we should optimize this based off of this. We should do this, to take the campaign from where it is to where they want to ultimately be, which is to make more money on Google Ads. So the suggestion that I made, which we're in the process of implementing, was just really to cut the number of campaigns down to, and what we decided was the best thing was to cut it down to 2 campaigns. Now, the reason we cut it down to 2 campaigns was, first of all, we were running an e-commerce store. We looked at the PMAX campaign that was collecting some data. And in the PMAX campaign, you can look at the channel performance. And in there, you can see, if you understand where to look in a PMAX campaign, Google will tell you whether you're spending your money on shopping or if it's on search. So we looked at that data and we decided the best 2 campaigns that we should run was leave the PMAX campaign, but take the budget from the campaigns that we paused, put it into that PMAX campaign, add in a number of asset groups or ad groups within the PMAX campaign to really focus in and hone in the PMAX campaign for the e-commerce company. And then based on the data that we were seeing, we added in then a search. It was either going to be a PMAX with a search campaign or a PMAX with a shopping campaign. And again, based on the data, this again is where we take away the guesswork, because we know where to go. Google is all about data, and if we can get the data points that we need, even if you're running a small budget, you're still going to get some data. But by adding in more budget, you're only going to amplify what's already going on with your Google ads. So what we did, we looked at the data points, we added in a search and a PMAX, we reduced the budgets right down, or paused the campaigns, took those budgets and put them, redistributed those into the 2 campaigns. And straight away, within, I think we've been doing this for 3 or 4 days, we're starting to see some good data points coming through. Then what we're going to be looking for is, now we've condensed the campaigns down to 2, we're now going to look to optimize, stabilize those accounts and make sure that they're getting enough purchases coming through at a cost per converted purchase that they want. So they want about 450 ROAS. So that's something that's very, very manageable and something that we can do based on the budget. Now, what we're going to be looking for is to stabilize the account, which is just optimizing it, getting some steady results over the next 30, 45 days. But what I'm going to be looking for is opportunities for us to vertically scale the campaign. Now, what is vertical scaling? So with Google, all we're doing is adding budget. Now, when you add budget to a campaign that's already doing well, what happens is we'll do this over 20% of the time. So if we've got a budget, say, of £100 a day, we want to, or $100 a day for this case, and we want to add a 20% increment, we'll go from 100 to 120. Why 20%? Because if we start increasing the campaigns more than 20%, what potentially can happen, which we don't want to happen, is it can go back into a bid strategy learning. We don't want that. We want to make sure that we're playing it safe. So we know, based on the data points, that by adding in 20% of the time, we can wait 5 to 7 days, see the results of that, and then we can further add another 20%, and then slowly but surely keep the performance, but add in the budget increases over a period of time. Now, the things that we need to be careful, the things that we need to be looking at as advertisers, and again, I want to use this as a case study for you to explain. As you increase budgets, there's a number of different things you need to look at. First of all, if you increase the budget by 20%, 40%, whatever that increment is, there may be points where you may find some resistance. Now, what does resistance actually mean for Google? Number one, you increase the budget. So you've added 20% and everything's been fine, and you got another 20%. So over a period of, say, 3 weeks, you've increased the budget by, say, 45%. And then all of a sudden, as you've increased it for that last budget increase or the latest budget increase, you've found that you haven't then seen those conversions coming through. And or you found that your cost per click, your CPC, starts to rise. What's happened is Google is saying that we've hit some resistance. There potentially could be an issue here. And if there is, then we need to look in and find out what that issue is. Now, look at the auction insights. You need to understand that if it's a CPC resistance, then potentially you've maxed out that campaign. Look at search impression share. If your search impression share is high, when I say high, sort of like 55, 60%, then potentially you're taking a majority of the search impressions in that local market, and potentially you need to do something else with the campaign. What else could you do? Well, if you've increased the budget and say you've gone from, say, 100 to 145 a day, the chances of this happening, by the way, are not very, so if we were to say, I don't know, 5,000 a day up to 6,500 a day, then potentially that might be a little bit more realistic for an e-commerce company if you're targeting a country. But again, the principles are still the same. If your CPCs or you're not getting enough conversions, you may have hit some sort of resistance, or your search impression share is high, then what you need to do then is look at horizontal scaling. Now, horizontal scaling for Google is where you then take the budget that you're going to allocate for that increase of scaling, and then try something else so if you're running a search campaign, then you could look to add a PMax campaign. Or if you've got a PMax and a search campaign, again, you could look to add a demand gen campaign. And there's different ways, there's different approaches that you can use for your Google Ads, but we have to be mindful, again, of why we're doing this. So I'm giving some examples. Vertically scale, you've hit some CPC resistance, then okay, it's fine. And again, the same principle doesn't just apply for e-commerce. If you're running lead generation and you're looking to scale, you're hitting some sort of resistance, whether you're not getting enough conversions coming through, because the budget increases should be steady with the conversions you're getting, or your CPC suddenly have risen or spiked, then that's good. Google's sending you a message, but you have to know the language of Google, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Then you know you've hit some CPC resistance. Then you could look to then open up a PMax campaign or a demand gen or some sort of, or potentially split the search campaign into another search campaign, and then take the winning campaign, put it into another, and then just, again, keep them separate. But understand, if you do that, then you need to understand that we don't want to overlap with the two campaigns if you're going to create another search campaign. But it's all down to data. It's down to what your overall strategy is to get more leads. Now, remember, if you're running a search campaign, search is the most expensive place to run in Google. So I always like to, if I'm running searches, then open it up to something else, maybe a search with a PMax if it's lead generation, or again, like I've mentioned previously, a search with a shopping is another option, depending on the data. So the reason I can't be define on exactly what we need to do is because each account's going to be different. That's why we need to be careful with sort of advice we're getting, one size fits all. It's just not true. It's not something that's realistic. We need to know that it's going to be based on the data from your account. And if you can understand that data, Google does give you the data, and you need to know how to translate that, like learning a language. The more you go in, the more you understand the data, then the better advertiser you'll become. And then you'll find basically that by condensing, less is more with Google, you can then get better results because you're allowing the algorithm to learn. You're allowing more data points for you to make better decisions as advertisers. And also AI is kicking in as well. So smart bidding, if you're going from max clicks to a max conversion strategy, you're going to get more data points. You're going to allow the algorithm to know more of what you want. And then it's going to allow you to then potentially you may think you're going backwards because you're reducing the amount of campaigns, but what you're doing is you're being smart with your decisions, focusing your budget on even one campaign is fine. And then from there, we can then look to scale vertically and then potentially scale horizontally. So I hope that makes sense. Just want to give you a little bit of an insight on a Friday on campaign structure. And remember, less is more with Google. We don't need complexity. Just I spend probably most of my time with a lot of accounts, especially e-commerce accounts, just saying, no, we don't need that. We don't need that. We don't need that. Why have you done that? Oh, we thought it'd be good based on, and there's no data points, or budgets being spread too thinly and not enough budget allocated to the main drivers of the actual what they're trying to push for their business. So again, I hope that will make sense, and we'll catch up with you guys soon.